The metal door slid open with a soft hiss. Zixthara stepped into the dark room, her 4 eyes adjusting to the dim light. The ship had been floating in space for who knows how long. Dead and cold, like so many others they found near the edge. Of known space dots, she moved carefully through the corridors. Her team had already checked the ship for dangers. Nothing lived here anymore, but something had caught their attention on the scanners. Data storage units that were still working after. All these years, Zixthara was good at her job. The Galactic Council trusted her to find answers when strange things happened. She had worked for them for 30 years, traveling from one star system to another. This was different, though. The ship was old, very old. Older than most species. Had been traveling in space, her scanner beeped. She had found what she was looking for. A small room filled with computers and storage devices. Most were broken, but 3 still showed green lights. She connected her portable reader to the first one. Data flowed across her screen. Languages she had never seen before. Pictures of creatures that looked almost familiar. Then she saw a word. That made her stop breathing for a moment. Humans. Everyone knew about humans. They were the failed species. The ones who destroyed their own planet and died out before they could join the galaxy. Children learned about them in school as an example of what not to do. Fight too much, pollute too much, never learn to work together. But this data was different. It showed humans building ships, not the simple ones the history books described. These were advanced vessels with technology that looked better than what most council species use today. Zixthara downloaded everything she could find. Hours passed. As she worked, the more she read, the more confused she became. According to these files, humans had not died out 200 years ago. They had simply vanished. And they had been far more advanced than anyone thought. Meanwhile, in a different part of space, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The New Dawn was not a pretty vessel. It was built for long journeys, not for looks. Jake had been its captain for 8 years now. Every day, he made the same choices. Avoid the main space routes. Stay away from council patrol areas. Keep moving. His crew trusted him completely. Lisa Grant sat at the pilot controls, her hands steady. On the steering system, she could fly the ship through an asteroid field with her eyes closed. Ben Turner worked in the engine room, keeping their old systems running when they should have broken down years ago. Kate Williams studied star charts and cosmic readings, always looking for safe places to travel. They were the last free humans. In the galaxy. At least, that was what Jake believed. Their parents and grandparents had told them stories about the old days, about Earth and the choice their people had made. But those stories seemed like myths now. Tales told to children to help them understand why they lived in hiding. Jake looked at the stars outside his window. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council controlled hundreds of worlds. Millions of species lived under their rule. They had peace, they claimed, order and safety for everyone who followed their laws. But humans had said no. They had refused to join. And according to the official history, they had paid the price. Their world had died. Their people had vanished. End of story. Jake knew better. He was living proof that the story was wrong. But he also knew that staying hidden was the only way to survive. The council believed humans were extinct. As long as they kept believing that, ships like the New Dawn could keep flying. Back on the derelict ship, Zixthara made a discovery that changed everything. Hidden in the deepest files, she found communication records. Messages between human ships that had been sent after the supposed extinction date. Coordinates for meeting places. Supply lists. Reports about council fleet movements. Her hands shook as she read. If this data was real, humans had not only survived their planet's destruction, They had been watching the galaxy ever since, observing, learning, preparing for something. She closed the files and disconnected her reader. This information was too important to study alone. High Chancellor Mordek needed to see it immediately. The leader of the Galactic Council would not be happy to learn that their most basic assumptions about galactic history might be completely wrong. Zixtara sent a message to her ship. Within minutes, her team was packing up to leave. The derelict vessel would be towed back to Council space for further study. But the real investigation would begin when she presented her findings to the High Chancellor Dot. As her ship prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, Zixtara looked one more time at the human vessel. It was small and simple compared to modern Council ships, but the technology hidden inside had been centuries ahead of its time. What else had humans been hiding? And more importantly, where were they hiding it? On the New Dawn, communications. Officer Amy Clark picked up something unusual on her listening equipment. Council ships were moving in patterns she had not seen before. Long-range scanners were being used more frequently. Search grids were being established in areas that had been ignored for years. She reported her findings to Jake. He studied the data with growing worry. After 8 years of successful hiding, something had changed. The Council was looking for something. Or someone. Jake called his senior officers to a meeting. They gathered in the small conference room, their faces serious. Everyone knew what increased Council activity could mean. Discovery meant capture. Capture meant the end of everything they had worked to protect, but Jake had been preparing for. This day since he became captain. Every human ship carried sealed orders for emergency situations. Now it might be time to open them. Time to learn secrets that only the ship captains knew. Secrets about what humanity had really been doing for the past 200 years. High Chancellor Mordek read the report 3 times before he believed it. The evidence was clear, but it challenged everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about humans. The blue-skinned leader of the Council had ruled for 50 years. In all that time, no discovery had disturbed him more than this one. He called for Dr. Veltara, the best archaeological expert in Council space. She was a tall, thin creature with silver skin and large black eyes. Her species, the Corvania, were known for their careful scientific methods and attention to detail. If anyone could find the truth about human civilization, it would be her. "I want you to take a team to Earth," Mordek told her during their private meeting. "Find out what really happened to the humans. The data Zixtara discovered suggests our history books may be completely wrong." Dr. Veltara accepted the mission without question. Within 2 days, she had assembled her team. Security Chief Krovak would lead a squad of elite guards. 3 other scientists would help her study whatever they found. Their ship, the Council Explorer, was loaded with the most advanced scanning and digging equipment available. The journey to Earth took 6 days. During the trip, Dr. Veltara studied every piece of information the Council had about humans. Most of it came from reports written 200 years ago. Tales of a violent species that fought constant wars and destroyed their environment. A people too aggressive and short-sighted to join galactic civilization. But as she read, she noticed something strange. All the reports came from the same few sources. No one had actually visited Earth in over a century. The Council had simply accepted that humans were extinct and moved on to other matters. When they reached Earth, Dr. Veltara was surprised by what she saw. The planet was blue and green, covered with oceans and growing forests. From space, it looked healthy and alive. This was not the dead world she had expected to find. They landed near the ruins of what their maps called New York City. Huge buildings rose from the ground, covered with plants and vines, but the structures themselves were solid and strong. Time had not destroyed them. Instead, Nature seemed to be gently reclaiming them. Dr. Veltara led her team through the empty streets. Everything was quiet except for the sound of wind and small animals. But as they explored, she noticed details that troubled her. The buildings showed no signs of war damage, no blast marks from weapons, no evidence of the great destruction that supposedly ended human civilization. Meanwhile, far away in space, Jake Morrison was dealing with his own problems. Amy Clark had been monitoring Council communications around the clock. The news was not good. Council ships were searching areas they had never bothered with before. Patrol schedules had been changed. Something had definitely gotten their attention. Jake gathered his crew in the main meeting room. Lisa Grant, Ben Turner, Kate Williams, and Amy Clark sat around the table, waiting for him to speak. These people had become his family over the years. They trusted him to keep them safe. But now he had to tell them that their safety was in danger. "The Council knows something," Jake said simply. "Amy has been tracking their communications. They are looking for something in areas where human ships have been spotted before." Kate Williams had been studying the intercepted data on her computer. She was the ship's science officer, but she was also an expert at breaking codes and analyzing information. What she had found made her very worried. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think there is something else you should know. I have been looking at the Council's historical records about humanity. Someone has been changing them over the years. The original files tell a different story than what is taught in schools today." Jake felt his blood turn cold. What kind of different story? The early records show that humans had advanced technology, space elevators, orbital factories, ships that could travel faster than anything the Council had. But those details have been slowly removed from the official history over the past 100 years. This news hit Jake like a physical blow. Someone had been hiding the truth about human capabilities for over a century. But who and why? Back on Earth, Dr. Veltara's team made their first major discovery. Deep beneath the ruins of the city, they found a tunnel system that had been built with incredible skill. The tunnels were perfectly round and smooth, cut through solid rock with tools more precise than anything the Council used today. The tunnels led to a massive underground facility. When they entered it, lights automatically turned on to welcome them. The air was clean and fresh, recycled by systems that had been running for centuries without maintenance. In the center of the facility, they found something that made Dr. Veltara gasp in amazement. It was a computer system unlike anything she had ever seen. Not just one computer, but thousands working together in perfect harmony. The processing power was incredible. The data storage capacity was beyond measurement. And according to the displays, it had been operational for over 200 years. As they approached the central computer, a voice spoke to them in perfect Galactic Standard language. "Welcome, representatives of the Galactic Council. I am Atlas, guardian of human knowledge. I have been waiting for you to arrive." Dr. Veltara nearly dropped her scanning equipment. An artificial intelligence that had been waiting for them. "How was that possible?" "You are surprised," Atlas continued. "Your records indicate that humans lacked advanced technology. That is understandable. Humans wanted you to believe that. It was necessary for their survival." Security Chief Krovac stepped forward, his weapon ready. But Atlas seemed to sense his concern. "There is no danger here. I am programmed to share information, not to cause harm. Humans learned long ago that knowledge shared freely is more powerful than knowledge hoarded in secret." Dr. Veltara found her voice. If humans had such advanced technology, why did they disappear? What happened to their civilization? The computer's response changed everything she thought she knew about galactic history. Humans did not disappear. They chose to leave. When the Galactic Council demanded that humanity submit to their authority, Human leaders agreed publicly, but privately, they began preparing for a different future. Images appeared on screens around the room. Pictures of massive construction projects in space. Ships being built in hidden locations. Entire populations being moved to secret colonies. All of it happening while the galaxy believed humans were struggling to survive on their dying planet. The destruction of Earth's surface was carefully planned, Atlas explained. Humans made it look like environmental collapse and nuclear war. But the real population had already been evacuated. The death of human civilization was the greatest magic trick in galactic history. Dr. Veltara sat down heavily on a nearby chair. If this was true, it meant the Council had been deceived for centuries. It meant humans were not extinct. It meant they were somewhere out there, watching and waiting. Where are they now? She whispered. Atlas paused before answering. That information is not mine to share. But I can tell you this. They have been watching the galaxy very carefully. They have seen how the Council treats species that do not fit their vision of order. They have seen what happens to those who refuse to submit. The artificial intelligence's words carried a warning that Dr. Veltara understood perfectly. Humans had not just survived. They had been preparing. And someday, they might decide it was time to reveal themselves to a galaxy that thought they were just a legend. The message came through on a frequency that had not been used in over a century. Jake Morrison stared at the communication screen in disbelief. The signal was weak but clear. Ancient human codes that his grandfather had taught him, but he never expected to use. All remaining human vessels respond to coordinates in the Kepler system. Authorization code Phoenix 77. This is not a drill. Amy Clark looked up from her communication station. Captain, that signal is being broadcast on emergency frequencies across half the galaxy. Whoever sent it wants to make sure every human ship receives it. Jake felt his hands shake as he read the message again. Phoenix 77 was a code from the old days. The days when humanity had first made contact with the Galactic Council and decided to refuse their demands for submission. Only ship captains were supposed to know what it meant. Ben Turner climbed up from the engine room, oil on his hands and worry on his face. Captain, we just got a massive power surge through our communication systems. Something activated our deep space transmitter without my permission. We just broadcast our location to anyone listening. The pieces fell into place in Jake's mind. The message was not just a recall signal. It was also an activation code. Hidden systems on human ships were waking up after decades of sleep. Systems that most of the crew did not even know existed. Lisa, set course for the Kepler system, Jake ordered. Best speed we can manage. Lisa Grant turned in her pilot seat. Captain, that is going to take us through 2 Council patrol zones. If they are looking for human ships, we will be flying right into their hands. Jake had to make the hardest decision of his career. Stay hidden and safe, or answer the call and risk everything. But something in the ancient code told him this was not really a choice. Events were already in motion that he could not stop. We go, he said firmly. Whatever is happening, we need to be part of it. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Veltara was still trying to understand what Atlas had told her. The artificial intelligence had shown her evidence that humans had been secretly observing the galaxy for centuries. Hidden monitoring stations, automated listening posts, even agents living among other species, gathering information and sending reports. How many of them are there? She asked the computer. That information is classified, Atlas replied. But I can tell you that humans learned from watching other species. They saw what happened to the Zephyrins when they refused Council authority. They watched the Korvac rebellion be crushed. They studied every species that tried to remain independent and failed. Dr. Veltara knew those historical events well. Species that had resisted Council membership had been given a choice: join willingly or be forced to join. Most had chosen to submit rather than face destruction. But apparently, humans had found a third option. Atlas continued speaking. Humans realized that the only way to remain free was to make the Council believe they were no longer a threat. Death was the perfect disguise. A dead species cannot rebel. A dead species cannot challenge Council authority. Security Chief Krovak had been listening to everything with growing alarm. If humans have been watching us for centuries, what else do they know? Our military capabilities? Our weaknesses? Our secret operations? The computer paused before answering. Humans know everything about the Galactic Council that can be learned through observation. They have been very patient students. Dr. Valtara felt a chill run through her body. The implications were terrifying. If humans had been secretly studying the galaxy for 200 years, they would know more about Council technology and tactics than the Council knew about itself. Back in space, the New Dawn was not the only human ship responding to the recall. Signal. Jake's long-range sensors picked up other vessels changing course toward the Kepler system. Ships he had never seen before, using technology that made his own vessel look primitive. Captain, Kate Williams called from her science station. I am reading at least 12 human ships converging on the coordinates, but some of these designs are not in any database we have. Where have they been hiding ships like these? Jake was beginning to realize that he knew much less about humanity's situation than he had thought. His ship had been hiding for years, moving from one remote location to another. But apparently, other humans had been doing much more than just hiding. When they reached the Kepler system, Jake saw something that changed his understanding of everything. Hidden behind a field of artificial asteroids was a massive space station. But calling it a station was not adequate. It was more like a floating city, bigger than anything the Council had ever built. And surrounding it was a fleet of human warships that took Jake's breath away. Sleek vessels with lines that suggested speed and power. Defensive systems that glowed with energy fields. Weapons that looked like they could crack a moon in half. A communication came through to the New Dawn. Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Ruth Parker, aboard the flagship Liberty. Permission to come aboard your vessel. Jake had heard that name before. Ruth Parker was a legend among the hidden human ships. Stories she had been fighting for human freedom since before he was born. But he had always thought she was just a myth. 20 minutes later, Admiral Ruth Parker stepped onto his bridge. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She wore a uniform that Jake did not recognize, with rank markings that followed no system he knew. Captain Morrison, she said with a slight smile, welcome to the real human fleet. Jake found his voice after a moment of shock. Admiral, I thought we were the last free humans in the galaxy. My crew and I have been hiding for years, trying to find a safe place to settle. Ruth Parker laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Captain, you and your people have been doing exactly what you were supposed to do. But hiding was never the complete plan. It was just the first phase. She gestured toward the massive fleet visible through the bridge windows. What you see here is the result of 2 centuries of secret preparation. While the galaxy thought humans were extinct, we have been building and learning and growing stronger. Kate. Williams stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. Admiral, the technology on these ships is incredible. How did humans develop such advanced systems while staying hidden? By being very careful and very patient, Ruth replied, and by learning from every species in the galaxy. We studied Council technology for decades before we built our first prototype. We tested every system in secret before we installed it on our ships. And we made sure that everything we built was better than anything the Council had. Jake felt overwhelmed by what he was learning. What happens now? Are we going to reveal ourselves to the galaxy? Admiral Parker's expression became serious. That choice is no longer ours to make. The Council has discovered evidence of our continued existence. Their archaeological team on Earth has learned the truth about our supposed extinction. Events are in motion that will force us into the open, whether we are ready or not. She looked out at the stars beyond the asteroid field. For 200 years, humans have been preparing for this moment. The moment when we could no longer hide. The moment when we would have to show the galaxy what we have become. Jake realized that everything was about to change. The quiet life of hiding and running was over. Humanity was about to step back onto the galactic stage. And this time, they would not be the weak, primitive species that the Council remembered. High Chancellor Mordok read Dr. Valtara's report in his private chambers. The words on the screen seemed impossible, but he knew his chief archaeologist never made mistakes. Humans were alive. They had been hiding for 2 centuries. And they possessed technology that could threaten everything the Galactic Council had built. He called an emergency meeting of the Council's inner circle. Representatives from the 5 most powerful species gathered in the secure conference room. The Corvani delegate read the report with growing alarm. The Xanthari military advisor began calculating battle scenarios. The Vexari diplomat worried about trade disruptions. How is this possible? Demanded General Fakmer of the Xanthari fleet. Our intelligence services monitor every system in the galaxy. How could an entire species hide from us for 200 years? Mordok had been asking himself the same question. According to the evidence, they made us believe they were extinct. They staged their own destruction so completely that we stopped looking for them. The implications were staggering. If humans had been watching the galaxy in secret, they knew everything about Council operations, military movements, diplomatic negotiations, resource locations, political weaknesses. The balance of power that had kept peace for centuries was suddenly in question. Meanwhile, Admiral Ruth Parker was explaining the truth to Jake Morrison and his crew aboard the hidden fleet. The conference room on the flagship Liberty was larger than the entire bridge of the New Dawn. Maps of the galaxy covered the walls, marked with locations that Jake had never heard of. Every human colony ship like yours was part of the plan, Ruth explained. You were told to find safe places to hide, and you did. But you were also serving as scouts, mapping unknown regions and testing Council response patterns. Jake felt confused and a little angry. You mean we were never really refugees? Our families, our children, the people who died during the journey. They were all part of some military operation? Ruth's expression softened. Your people were never in any real danger, Captain. But their sacrifice was real, and it was necessary. Every human ship that stayed hidden helped maintain the illusion that our species was extinct. She pointed to a star chart showing human colony locations. There were dozens of them, scattered across unexplored regions of space. Each one had been carefully positioned to avoid Council detection while maintaining communication with the Central Command. The colonies your people established are now home to over 50 million humans, Ruth continued. Children who have never known the fear of hiding. Scientists who have had 2 centuries to develop new technologies. Engineers who have built wonders that the Council cannot imagine. Back on Earth, Atlas was sharing more information with Dr. Valtara's team. The artificial intelligence showed them recordings of human cities that had been built in secret locations. Orbital stations that harvested energy from stars. Manufacturing facilities that could produce entire starships in a matter of days. Human industrial capacity now exceeds that of all Council species combined, Atlas explained. But they have been very careful to hide their true capabilities. Every ship they built was designed to look less advanced than it actually was. Dr. Valtara studied the images with growing fear. Why are you showing us this? What do humans want? From the Council? They want what they have always wanted, Atlas replied. The right to exist without interference. The right to govern themselves. The right to explore the galaxy as equals, not as subjects. Security Chief Krovak stepped forward. And if the Council refuses to grant those rights? The computer paused before answering. Humans have been preparing for that possibility as well. New images appeared on the screens. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Defensive systems that could protect whole star systems. Technologies that could disrupt Council communication networks across the galaxy. The message was clear. Humans had the power to defend their independence. On the flagship Liberty, Admiral Ruth Parker was preparing for the most important decision in human history. The fleet commanders had gathered from across the galaxy. Men and women who had spent their lives building toward this moment. The Council will vote within days on how to respond to our existence, Ruth told the assembled officers. Some will call for immediate military action. Others will want to negotiate. But all of them will be afraid. Captain Jake Morrison listened from his seat at the table. He was beginning to understand the enormous responsibility that had been placed on his shoulders. He was no longer just the captain of a refugee ship. He was a representative of humanity's future. What if they choose war? Asked Commander Lisa Hayes, captain of the stealth ship Ghost Runner. Are we prepared for a full conflict with the Council? Ruth nodded grimly. We have been preparing for war since the day we went into hiding. Our ships are faster, our weapons are more powerful, and our defensive systems are nearly impenetrable. But war would cost millions of lives on both sides. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. A war between humans and the Council would tear the galaxy apart. Trade would collapse. Neutral species would be forced to choose sides. The peace that had lasted for centuries would be shattered. There is another option, Ruth continued. We reveal ourselves voluntarily. We contact the Council directly and offer to negotiate. We show them that we are not a threat to their way of life, only to their control over ours. Back in Council. Space. High Chancellor Mordock was facing the same choice from the other side. The emergency session had been going for hours. Some delegates wanted to send the entire Council fleet to hunt down human colonies. Others argued for immediate diplomatic contact. We must consider the possibility that they are still watching us, warned Intelligence Director Vextar. Everything we say and do may be reported back to their leadership. They may know about this meeting. The thought sent a chill through the chamber. How do you plan against an enemy who has been studying you for centuries? How do you negotiate with people who know all your secrets? General Thakmer stood up, his military bearing obvious in every movement. If humans have the technology Dr. Veltara described, a military solution may not be possible. Our fleet was designed to maintain order among species with similar technological levels. We have never faced an opponent with clearly superior capabilities. Mordick knew the general was right. The Council's power had always been based on having the most advanced military in the galaxy. If humans had surpassed them, the fundamental basis of Council authority was in question. We need more information, the High Chancellor decided. Doctor, Veltara will continue her investigation on Earth, but we will also prepare for the possibility of direct contact. If humans are going to reveal themselves, we need to be ready to respond. What no one in the Council chamber knew was that the decision had already been made. At that very moment, Admiral Ruth Parker was recording a message that would change galactic history forever. A message that would be broadcast to every inhabited system within days. The age of human hiding was about to end. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what would come next. The message went out across the galaxy on every frequency at exactly the same time. Admiral Ruth Parker had chosen her words carefully. knowing that billions of beings would hear them, and that history would judge every syllable. To the Galactic Council and all member species, this is Admiral Ruth Parker of the Human Defense Fleet. For 200 years, you have believed that humanity was extinct. Today, we reveal the truth. We are alive, we are free, and we are ready to take our place in galactic civilization as equals. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. On Council worlds, emergency sessions were called. Military commanders scrambled to assess the threat. Civilian populations demanded answers from their leaders. How had an entire species hidden from them for so long? High Chancellor Mordak watched the message in his private office, his 4 hands clenched in frustration. The decision had been taken away from him. There would be no careful planning, no quiet diplomatic contacts. Humanity had announced itself to the entire galaxy at once, but Admiral Parker was not finished. Her message continued with details that shocked even the Council's military experts. Humans had not simply survived, they had thrived. 50 million. People living in hidden colonies. A fleet of advanced warships that could challenge any force in the galaxy. Technology that made Council science look primitive. We do not seek conquest, the Admiral's voice echoed through space. We do not wish to rule over other species. We ask only for the right to govern ourselves and to explore the stars as free beings. We invite the Galactic Council to meet with U.S. in neutral space to discuss the future of human-council relations. The message ended with coordinates for a meeting point in the Vega system, a location far from any major population centers, where talks could be held without interference. Admiral Parker had given the Council 7 days to respond. On Earth, Dr. Veltara heard the broadcast through ATLAS. The artificial intelligence had been monitoring galactic communications and shared the news with the archaeological team. The computer seemed almost pleased by the development. The time for hiding is over, Atlas said. Humans have chosen to reveal themselves rather than wait for discovery. It is a wise decision. Better to control the revelation than to have it forced upon them. Dr. Veltara felt overwhelmed by the speed of events. Just days ago, she had believed humans were extinct. Now she was learning that they had built a civilization that could challenge the entire Council. Everything she thought she knew about galactic history had been wrong. What will happen now? She asked the computer. That depends on the choices made by both humans and the Council, Atlas replied. Humans have shown their strength, but they have also shown their peaceful intentions. The Council must decide whether to respond with fear or with wisdom. In the Galactic Council chambers, the emergency session had been going for hours. Representatives from dozens of species argued about how to respond to the human revelation. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for careful negotiation. A few suggested simply ignoring the humans and hoping they would go away. General Thicmer had been studying the tactical information in the human message. The numbers were frightening. 50 human warships had appeared on long-range sensors near the Vega system. Each one showed energy signatures beyond anything in the Council fleet. If they wanted to attack us, they could have done it at any time over the past 2 centuries, the general admitted reluctantly. The fact that they chose to reveal themselves peacefully suggests they are serious about negotiation. But not everyone agreed. Senator Crofts of the hegemony demanded action. They have been spying on us for centuries. They know our military capabilities, our political weaknesses, our economic systems. This is an act of war. High Chancellor Mordak listened to the arguments with growing frustration. The Council had maintained peace for centuries by being the dominant power in the galaxy. Now they faced a species that had secretly surpassed them in technology and possibly in military strength. Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison was learning about his new role in human society. Admiral Parker had asked him to serve as one of the human negotiators at the upcoming meeting. His years of experience dealing with hiding and survival made him valuable in understanding council psychology. "Why me?" Jake asked during a private meeting with the Admiral. "I am just a colony ship captain. You have military officers with decades more experience." Ruth Parker smiled. "Because you understand what it means to be afraid of the council. You know what it feels like to hide from them. That perspective will be valuable when we sit down to talk." The human fleet was preparing for the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Ships that had been hidden for decades were moving into position around the Vega system. Not as a threat, but as a demonstration of human capabilities. Jake studied the council files that Admiral Parker had given him. Detailed information about every species in the galactic government, their cultures, their fears, their motivations. Information that could only have been gathered through centuries of careful observation. "We know them better than they know themselves," Ruth explained. "We have watched them make decisions, seen their mistakes, learned from their successes. We understand exactly what kind of negotiations will work with each species." The 7 days passed quickly. On the appointed day, High Chancellor Mordak arrived at the Vega system with a small diplomatic fleet. He had decided to attend the meeting personally, despite the risks. The future of galactic civilization might depend on the next few hours. Human fleet was waiting for them. 50 warships arranged in a defensive formation around a space station that had not been there a week ago. The council ships looked small and primitive by comparison. The meeting took place aboard the human station. Jake Morrison found himself sitting across from beings he had spent years hiding from. High Chancellor Mordak, General Thegmer, and representatives from a dozen major species, all of them staring at him with combinations of fear, curiosity, and anger. Admiral Parker spoke first. "Thank you for coming. We know this meeting challenges everything you believed about human extinction. We are here to discuss how our two civilizations can coexist peacefully." The negotiations were tense. Some council members demanded that humans submit to galactic authority. Others wanted guarantees that humans would not interfere with council operations. A few suggested partitioning the galaxy into human and council territories, but Admiral Parker had a different proposal. "We suggest a new galactic charter, one that recognizes the sovereignty of all species, including humanity. We do not want to join the council as subjects. We want to work with you as equals." High Chancellor Mordak studied the human proposals carefully. They were reasonable, even generous. Humans were offering to share some of their advanced technology in exchange for recognition of their independence. They promised not to interfere with council operations in their traditional territories. "Why should we trust you?" Senator Kravs demanded. "You have been deceiving us for centuries. How do we know this is not another trick?" Jake Morrison spoke for the first time during the formal negotiations. "Because we could have conquered you at any time if that was our goal. We chose to hide instead of fight. We chose to build instead of destroy. We are revealing ourselves now because we want peace, not war." The council delegates spent hours debating among themselves. Some species were afraid of human technology. Others were excited by the possibility of learning from human science. The military representatives worried about the balance of power. The diplomats saw opportunities for new alliances. Finally, High Chancellor Mordak called for a vote. The proposal was simple: accept the new galactic charter that recognized human sovereignty, or reject it and face an uncertain future. The vote was close, but the charter passed by a narrow margin. The signing ceremony took place 3 days later. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy gathered to witness the historic moment. Admiral Ruth Parker signed for humanity. High Chancellor Mordak signed for the Galactic Council. Jake Morrison watched from the observation deck as the documents were completed. After centuries of hiding, humanity was finally free to explore the galaxy openly. The fear that had driven them into exile was over, but the ceremony was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, human colonies began revealing themselves across the galaxy. Ships that had been hiding for decades emerged from secret bases. Scientists shared discoveries that advanced galactic knowledge by centuries. The galaxy changed rapidly. Human medical technology saved millions of lives. Human energy systems provided clean power to struggling worlds. Human transportation methods connected distant regions in ways that had never been possible. Not everything was smooth. Some council species resented human superiority in certain technologies. There were incidents where human ships were attacked by species that refused to accept the new order. But these conflicts were resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. Jake Morrison returned to his ship, the New Dawn, but his mission had changed completely. Instead of hiding from council patrols, he now served as a liaison between human colonies and council worlds. His crew worked to establish trade relationships and cultural exchanges. Lisa Grant,